Welcome to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Brian Mosier, the social media advisor for Dilatory, and I also happen to be a left below knee amputee. Let's get into today's episode. How's it going, everyone? My guest today is bilateral below knee amputee, and he is the architect of the revAMPd podcast name, Mason Hall. Mason, welcome to revAMPd.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. When did you first start having problems that led to your amputation?
From a young age, because of being born with bilateral club feet, I had almost resigned myself to the fact that I'd be in a wheelchair by now.
Okay.
And when I got older in my 20s, it started to become more of a thing for people with adults with club feet, because we were all treated surgically at, my age group.
Right.
And those surgeries break down. And after a lifetime of not holding back, doing martial arts and snow skiing and free climbing and dancing and everything, and being a paramedic for 15 years, it got to the point where I felt like I was constantly walking around on the worst sprained ankles I've ever had in my life. It was constant. I mean, I can honestly say I've never known a day in my life without pain. I cannot remember a single day without pain. And it got to the point where my ankles were essentially disintegrating. And so 3 years ago today when I had my right leg done. It was my 3-year anniversary on my right side. Wow.
So you're right. Which one did you have first, your right side or your left side done?
My right side. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my first one.
Okay. Then how long was it before you had your left side?
Actually my left side was only 6 months ago.
Oh, wow.
It was March 8th of this year. Yeah.
Wow. So they're pretty new.
Yeah, very new. Yeah, very new.
So how's your recovery process been?
It's actually been fantastic for me. I had one little stumble, so to speak, 28 days after my left amputation, and my crutch hit the carpet, and I went down full force onto my 28-day-old stump that I stupidly wasn't wearing my removable cast for.
Oh yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, because for me, this is such a better quality of life.
Sure.
It's been amazing for me. And, I'm back in the gym almost every single day now. And,
that's fantastic.
As part of my own celebration for my anniversary, I just set a personal record on the leg press of 810 pounds.
Oh man, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and I mean, with my feet, my ankles would have just like disintegrated with that amount of weight.
Yeah.
And now it's, the sky's the limit. And I've actually just, within the last few weeks, I've decided I'm starting to train to compete in the disabled strongman.
Oh, that's fantastic. Man, what an awesome goal. Let me ask you, what kind of feet are you using?
I have the Rush High Pro on my left and the Rush Rogue on my right.
Okay. When you walk, do you notice a difference between the two types of feet at all?
I really don't. I put the Rogue on my right because I'm left-handed and I'm a golfer.
Okay.
And it's my forefoot. So it gives me the lateral rotation on my forefoot. Otherwise, because it's the newer one, it would have been on my left side. But I really don't feel a huge difference. I mean, it's the vertical loading shock isn't really noticeable just walking around.
Right.
So
Yeah, I have to ask because my situation. I'm just single. Just left below knee, and I started when I first came to Rush. I started in the high pro, and then I switched to the Rogue. And you're right that vertical loading pylon not real noticeable, just kind of walking around normal everyday walking. But then when I do activities, of course, then I notice that's where it's really helping me out. And so that's pretty interesting that you have one of each like that. Pretty cool. Yeah. So what kind of things, other than being in the gym and now you want to go for the disabled strongman, what kind of other activities are you involved in?
I'm a huge geek. I do a lot of, I'm a science fiction fantasy geek.
Okay.
But one of the things that I really, there's not a huge, if even at all, support resource in Utah for amputees. And so one of my goals is actually to build that program.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
I want to, and there's a gym here in Utah. On Saturday, we just had a adaptive clinic with Team Black Sheep.
Okay.
And sponsored by Honor Thread and Strike Hard CrossFit. Yeah.
Okay.
And they came in, and two of the coaches are disabled, or they're adaptive.
Okay.
One is a unilateral amputee. The other one has extremely limited use of his left leg and left arm. And he's actually a level 2 CrossFit coach. They're both veterans. Sean, the unilateral amputee, he's actually still active duty. He's on the Paralympian rifle team.
Nice.
And the owner of the gym, actually, she brought this in because she wants to open up to the adaptive community, and say, because for somebody that's overweight, out of shape, elderly or disabled, even just walking in the doors of a gym is an extremely daunting task.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, you're very vulnerable at that point.
Right.
And so she wants to basically say, open arms. Every one of you is welcome. Come in, and we're going to do our best. And, we'll figure out what works best for you, and we'll help you every step of the way.
Oh, that is fantastic.
And I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to be part of that. So.
And it's awesome to hear because even here I live in the Pittsburgh area, and I mean there's tons of gyms and everything, but even here it's a struggle. Like I'm beyond the point of physical therapy, so it's a struggle to kind of find gyms that want to work with people who need that, who need something adaptive and or even who know how.
Right.
So anytime anybody can says, hey, we want to open our doors to the adaptive community, I just think that's totally awesome.
Yeah. Because big props to Big Mountain Barbell in Murray, Utah.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So one of the things that I saw, I was looking on Facebook and it really interested me is you're into like, what would you call it? Like some special effects and stuff, right?
Yeah. I'm also a special effects makeup artist. I was the makeup director for one of our haunted houses here.
Oh, okay.
I've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years. And because of my, the recent surgeries and stuff, I've actually stepped back from being the director of the makeup at the haunted house.
Okay.
But I've worked on a few short films, and, I've done stuff here for like the zombie walk and the zombie prom and,
nice.
Stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was some of the stuff that some of the pictures you had up. I was just like, man, this is really cool. Man, that's just kind of, I don't know. Some of the effects stuff just really gets me. I just really enjoy seeing. I certainly can't do that, but I love seeing it, and I just think it's really cool how that all comes together. All right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Very, very cool. So as a lot of people know, a little while back, we had to rebrand the podcast, and I just kind of reached out on Facebook asking for suggestions, and I didn't know if we would find something, if we wouldn't. There were some like 1980s ridiculous suggestions that I'm like, no, that's just not, And so, and you came and you posted Revamp, which we adapted a little bit. We adapted it. I wasn't trying to make a joke out of it. But tell me, when you posted that, what does Revamp mean to you?
So I think every one of us that is an amputee, and even anyone in the adaptive community, at one point when you become a member of the adaptive community, you have to revamp your life. You have to change the way you do things. And, and a lot of it is revamping your mindset, and even, just simple things around the house. You just have to adapt. And there's stuff you may have been able to do before that you can still do. You just have to do it differently.
Right.
You have to revamp the way that you're doing things. And I think that was just kind of it just jumped out at me, is that, we all have to do it in maybe a small little way, or maybe massively huge ways. We have to revamp our life.
Absolutely. And when I saw that, I was just like, I said, I got to ask him how he's looking at this. And then when you explained it, I said, that's it. I said, that's what it is. So when I took it to the powers that be, and they said, hey, what about revamped, and add that D. And I said, yeah, I love it. I said, that's it. And so I said, Mason gets the credit because, you said that, and it has been such a game changer for us, really, because people are like, what, the first thing you were doing, it was okay, but it was just kind of dumb, and I didn't really like it. And, even like our prosthetist and stuff, I was wearing one of the t-shirts the other day, and she said, I just like this so much better. And I was like, oh, I do too. I said, I'm glad, because I do too. And it's, so it's worked out for us, and it's really been a great and positive thing. And so I really appreciate you setting us up on that. So I started telling people that you're the architect behind our name. And it's, and it's one of the cool things about the amputee community is the way that, whether it's something like this or in other ways, that we can get together and kind of help each other out sometimes. And
right.
So I certainly appreciate that. Really has made a difference for what we're trying to do here, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I found that in the community as well, is that, everybody is willing to help each other.
Absolutely.
People are in different situations, and I understand that, and some people may be reserved because they're still not sure about things.
Right.
But, a perfect example for me deciding to do the disabled strongman competition, I've been in contact with quite a few of the athletes that compete, and the current world record holder for the seated deadlift in the sitting class for the disabled strongman, the current record is 982 pounds. And I talked to him on Facebook Messenger, and essentially he said, come at me, bro. He's challenging me. He wants me to push him.
Right.
He wants me to get there where he's at, and that's the way that I see things too, is that, I just did the leg press of 810 pounds today. I would love to see another bilateral blow than the amputee blow that out of the water.
Oh yeah.
That would excite me like crazy.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because I remember, and I mean, this was, a really long time ago, and before I was ever an amputee or anything like that, when I was in high school and I did powerlifting, and, I was offensive lineman. And so I lifted, with the other offensive linemen, and I set the record on the leg press for our high school, 1,300 pounds. And that was the record. And, that was a record I set. It was like 1,250 before that. And I remember like a couple years later, I was at a game and I was just talking to some of the guys, and he's like, well, I really wasn't looking forward to talking to you. He's like, because I broke your record. And I'm like, no, that's cool. I said, records are meant to be broken, and
Absolutely.
I said, you just set that bar so much higher. I said, I don't remember exactly what I said now, but it's something to the effect of, what a workhorse to be able to do that. Because I know what it took me to do that, when I was 16, 17 years old. And so for someone else to come along and break that, hey, more power to them.
Absolutely.
I couldn't even touch what you're doing right now, and I'm only left below knee. But maybe someday I'll get close to that again. But I think the thing that I like for amputees is always keep in mind, whether they're just, whether they're bilateral or just one or whatever their situation is just to keep pushing themselves.
Absolutely.
And keep trying.
Yeah. Even if it's just getting up and walking around your house, that's a goal, set that goal and do it.
Absolutely.
And that's the important thing, is to realize your life's not over.
Right.
And there's still so much that, that we can do.
Absolutely.
And if it's just walking around your house, awesome. And then push yourself to say, I'm going to walk outside.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk down the street. Just pushing those little goals, your own little boundaries, and, you only stand in your own way.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What are some of the things, I know you mentioned earlier that since becoming an amputee, it's offered you a better quality of life, but what are some of the things throughout this process that have motivated you and helped you just to persevere and to keep going?
My kids. I didn't want to be the dad who couldn't go and do stuff with my kids.
Sure.
I didn't want to just, I don't know, before I would come home from work and I'd lay down in bed. I'm done. I checked out because I was in so much pain.
Yeah.
And, right now my schedule doesn't perfectly align. I'm trying to get back on a day shift and stuff, but like with the haunted house, my entire family works up at the haunted house.
Okay.
And, and so it's just something to do as a family, that kind of stuff. And then I look at some of these other amputees and, like Casey Mitchell and Derek Wida, that are doing just these amazing things fitness wise.
Right.
Casey Mitchell, he's a single below the knee amputee, veteran, and he competes in full powerlifting competitions with non-adaptive athletes.
Right.
I mean, that blows me away, and that inspires me. And, and I've always for the longest time, I've been inspired by Nick Scott, who he started the wheelchair bodybuilding league.
Oh,
and has really, encouraged people that are confined to a wheelchair to get out there, and, now they compete at wheelchair bodybuilding competitions.
Yeah.
So,
man,
that anyone that pushes their own boundaries, that's right. what really has been motivating me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember the first time and I've only ever interacted with him online, but the first time that I ever saw Derek Wida, I was just like, man, this is insane that this guy is doing all this, because when I first became an amputee, and of course, I was sick and had a bad infection, and I mean, it was like a life-saving thing. I was just like, well, that's it, it's going to be a wheelchair or nothing. And then, obviously 5 years later, I know that's not true. But, at the time, and so I start finding other amputees. And when I came across Derek Wida, I was just like, wow. I said, now that's some motivation that, I'm not going to be Derek Wida, or the next Derek Wida, but I can do the things that I want to do. And one of the biggest things for me has just been seeing other people that go back to living their life and they've persevered and they've overcome, like you've done. And like you say, if people just, even if amputees just set that small goal, say, you know what, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to put my leg on and I'm going to walk around my house. And if that's all I do, that's okay, because that's a great start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You gotta start somewhere. And that's the big thing. And then also one of the important things, and I've seen a lot of, like Derek Wida's, Instagram videos.
Yeah.
Is the humor. You know, he has one where he's at Starbucks and he's trying to order an amputee. You know, it's just, and like my kids have asked me, because I'll joke about stuff too, you know, with my legs.
Yeah.
And my kids asked me one time, they're like, why do you joke about it? And I said, you know, if you're not laughing about it and you're not joking about it, you're screaming about it. And that's no way to live.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I had someone kind of bawl me out one time because, you know, I use a lot of humor and I use a lot of sarcasm. You know, and that's just kind of how I cope, you know, but that's what I use. And they messaged me on Facebook and they were like, you know, there's nothing funny about being an amputee. I can't believe you would joke about it or think there's anything funny. And I understand, you know, at first I was kind of like a little ticked off about that comment, but then I understand, you know, they're coming from a place of frustration and maybe some bitterness and resentment over their own situation. So I know that, you know, it's coming from something deep rooted within them. But, you know, at the same time, I'm just like, you know, I went to the coalition conference this year for the first time. And one of the first things I went to the peer visitor training. And one of the first things they said, you know, is humor is part of the healing process. And I was like, and I got to talking to one of the instructors, you know, after the fact. And I said, I really needed to hear that. And I told him that story that I just told you. And I said, you know, I said, I know it is. But I said, after, you know, somebody coming at me like that, I was like, man, maybe I shouldn't, you know, try to use so much humor. He's like, no, he's like, it's fine. You know, he said, just remember, everybody's at a different place.
You know. One of my favorite stories about that, and this actually involves a kid. And for the life of me, I can't remember who told it to me, but it was their daughter, and they were playing hide and seek. And, so the mom was out looking for the daughter. And so she goes into the room and she sees her daughter's feet, underneath the curtains, you know, by the window. So she goes over to whip the curtains open and say, hi, I got you. And she whipped the curtains open and it was just her legs. So her daughter had taken her legs off and stuck them there to throw her mom off and then crawled away.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man, I love it. You got to love when people will use humor.
Yeah.
I was just not out of high school very long. I graduated high school in like 94. So I'm dating myself a little for some of the younger people that listen. But before my freshman year of college, I was helping out a guy from our church who was he was a bilateral above knee amputee, and he was an older gentleman, and he didn't whatever, you know, his choice was he didn't get prosthetics. I don't know if it's because of his advanced age or what, but anyhow, we were out early one morning and we were on our way to breakfast, and it was super cold that morning. And he said, he asked me, he said, can I ask you something? I was like, well, yeah. And he said, are your feet cold? And I said, well, I said a little bit, you know, because it was like 25 degrees. And he said, my feet aren't cold. And it took me back, but then I laughed, you know, I mean, he was laughing. So then I laughed, and it, you know, and so, but now that I'm an amputee, you know, I get all that. I see where that's funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, we got to use humor. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned as you've gone through this about yourself? That I'm stronger than I thought I was. Okay.
You know, that I can do what I want to do. When I was in high school, I got introduced to emergency medicine, and, well, I guess first thing was I was going to join the military and go to medical school.
Okay.
That was my plan. You know, I was going to join the Air Force and become a doctor.
Oh, nice.
And no branch of the service would touch me with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
And because of my club feet. And then I started taking classes and I fell in love with emergency medicine. I became a paramedic, and, you know, I was a paramedic for so long and did, you know, I'd seen some amazing things, some stuff that, you know, I still think about to this day. And then all of a sudden I'm found not fit for duty.
Wow.
And I'm like, what do I do now? You know? And so it's like everything just came crashing down on me. And it's like, okay, I don't have a purpose anymore. And so I went through a really, really dark time. And now that I've, you know, it's, you know, been 3 years, obviously, but it's a little bit longer than that, because over the last 4 years, I've actually also had 2 spinal fusions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because of being a paramedic, it's just murder on your back. And because of my club feet and the way that I walked, my gait was abnormal. And so it threw off my spine. And, so now I got titanium rods and all that kind of fun stuff in there. But so over the last 4 years, I really had a lot of time to think. And I was 310 pounds 4 years ago. I'm down to 265 now.
Oh, nice.
And once I was, I guess, mobile was the, kind of the best word. It was, I hit the ground running, and, figuratively, because I still hate running, but, now, especially with finding Disabled Strongman and having a goal to go to the Arnold Classic in March and compete, and, wanting to reach out and build this community here in Utah, it's just, I feel like I have a purpose again.
Right.
And for me, that's one of the most important things. Is I went through that really, really rough patch, but I came out of it. And, when I came out of it, I had reoriented my goals, and, like I said, I feel like I have a new purpose in life now, and I just turned 40 this year. So,
well, welcome to the club.
Over the hill, I know.
Man, I tell you, I'm 41. I'll be 42 in March, and I always tell people, I say, "Oh no," I say 40 is the new 25, and people laugh. And somebody was telling me that, and they're 40, and they said, "Oh, I feel so old." I was like, "No," I said, "Don't say that." I said, "You're only," I'm one of those, "You're only as old as you feel" kind of thing. And since I got back, like you said, finding that purpose and everything, I feel younger than I am, and. So it's, I think it's kind of maybe a mind over matter situation there.
Yeah. I feel better. I feel better, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, than I did through my 20s and my 30s.
Yeah.
Because when I hit my 20s, that's when things kind of really started to, that's when I was a paramedic and that kind of stuff. And then when I hit 30, all of the surgeries that I had were on my ankles. And I was, like I said, I was not easy on anything. So everything was starting to break down.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly in pain. And, it wasn't just, I have pain here and there, a couple of times a day. It was just constant. And so now at 40, I feel better now than I did in my 20s.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I can attest to that too. At 40, I feel better now than I did when I was 25 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do. I think sometimes, we get older, and especially, become an amputee or things happen. And then we kind of decide, I'm going to start taking better care of myself and, eating right and trying to lose weight and things like that. And I think that's when it really just clicks with our body that, hey, they're finally doing something for me. So, I'm going to kind of reward them a little bit.
Right.
I'll let us feel better. So, we've talked about a lot of different things, and, you've got a very, very positive story that I think is really going to resonate with a lot of people and bring a lot of encouragement and hope to other amputees. But what kind of advice or encouragement might you have for some amputees who right now are just they're struggling, and they allow themselves to believe that, maybe life is over and that everything's just pointless. How would you encourage them?
Reach out, reach out to other amputees, reach out to me. I'm an open book, and I will talk with anyone about, what's going on in their lives, whether they want to talk about being an amputee or not, Sure. I'm an open book, and I think just reach out to people. Don't feel that you're alone in it, because you're not. There's an entire community of us. And I would say 99.99% of us will be there for you and support you, and, and do whatever we can, whether we're across the world from you.
Absolutely.
We'll talk on Facebook, we'll talk on Instagram, whatever you want to do, and support each other and push each other to improve our lives.
Absolutely. So today I've been talking with Mason Hall. He is a bilateral below-knee amputee and the architect behind the revAMPd podcast name. For more information about Mason, you can connect with him on Facebook at mhall1977. Mason, I appreciate you joining me on Revamped. It has been fun.
Yeah, it has. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You've been listening to Revamped, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you've enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review on iTunes or give us a like on Facebook. I'm Brian Mosier. I invite you to visit our website, www.revampedpodcast.com, and connect with us on Facebook at Revamped Podcast.